While the Western Allies celebrated their success in North Africa, the war's decisive struggles continued on the vast plains of the Eastern Front. There, the Soviet Union had entered the conflict as a full partner after German armies launched a surprise invasion in the summer of 1941. Hitler had broken his earlier pact with Stalin and sent more than 3 million troops eastward in the largest military operation ever mounted. The initial advance carried the Wehrmacht deep into Soviet territory, capturing millions of prisoners and destroying entire armies. Yet the vast distances, the coming winter, and the growing resistance of Soviet forces prevented a quick collapse of the Red Army. By the end of that first year, the front had stabilized, though at a terrible cost to both sides. Stalin's government now received steady supplies from Britain and the United States under the Lend-Lease program. Tanks, aircraft, trucks, and food arrived through Arctic convoys and across the Pacific, helping to keep Soviet factories and armies in the field. At the same time, the Red Army began to reorganize. New commanders rose through the ranks, and fresh divisions were formed from the surviving manpower of the vast country. The Germans, however, remained confident that one more summer offensive would break Soviet resistance for good. In the spring of 1942, Hitler turned his attention to the oil fields of the Caucasus and the industrial city of Stalingrad on the Volga River. Capturing these targets would starve the Soviet war machine of fuel and cut a vital transport link. German forces under Field Marshal von Bock opened the offensive in late June. Armored columns drove southeastward, overrunning the Crimea and reaching the Don River. By August, the Sixth Army under General Friedrich Paulus stood within sight of Stalingrad itself. The city stretched for miles along the western bank of the Volga, its factories and apartment blocks offering perfect defensive positions. Stalin ordered the city held at all costs, and the local commander, Vasily Chuikov, organized every available soldier and civilian into a stubborn defense. The fighting that followed became a nightmare of close-quarter combat. German artillery and aircraft reduced much of Stalingrad to rubble, yet the ruins provided cover for Soviet snipers and small assault teams. Soldiers fought for single floors of buildings, for stairwells, and even for individual rooms. The Volga froze in November, allowing Soviet reinforcements to cross under cover of darkness. Both sides suffered appalling losses. The Germans could not break the final pockets of resistance, while the Soviets clung to a narrow strip of the riverbank. Then, on November 19th, the Red Army launched a massive counteroffensive north and south of the city. Two Soviet fronts struck the weaker Romanian and Italian armies that guarded the flanks of Paulus's Sixth Army. Within days, the attacking columns met behind Stalingrad, trapping more than 250,000 German and Allied troops inside a shrinking pocket. Hitler forbade any breakout. He promised air supplies that never arrived in sufficient quantity. Winter blizzards grounded the Luftwaffe and froze the ground. Inside the pocket, rations dwindled and ammunition ran low. Frostbite and typhus took a steady toll. By January 1943, the noose had tightened. Soviet forces recaptured the last airfield and reduced the pocket to a few square miles. On the last day of the month, Paulus, newly promoted to Field Marshal, surrendered what remained of his command. More than 90,000 exhausted men marched into captivity. Only a few thousand would ever return to Germany. The Battle of Stalingrad had cost the Axis powers an entire army and ended any realistic hope of victory in the East. News of the surrender traveled quickly to the other fronts. In North Africa, the British and Commonwealth troops continued their advance, while in the Pacific, the United States began its long island-hopping campaign. For the Soviet Union, the victory at Stalingrad marked the moment when the strategic initiative passed permanently into its hands. From that point, the Red Army would push westward year after year until it reached the heart of Germany itself.